Hello, and welcome to the Tavern Chat Podcast. I am your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, your main proprietor at the Tenkar's Tavern blog. This is episode number 77. Today is going to be a bit of a news episode, news in the RPG industry, or current events, or whatever you want to look at it. Biggest news. And probably the last time we're going to mention this individual for a while, unless it's something get himself back in the news. Ken Whitman. Ken Whitman's first court appearance for the lawsuit that was filed by Louis Desi was supposed to be today, August 1st, 2018. And Ken blinked. He stopped bluffing. Ken came, and I guess that's not very common for Kenny. Certainly not part of his nature. He was mostly honest and admitted to Desi, who was suing not just for his $250 investment into the Kickstarter for the Knights of the Dinner Table live action series, but also to have Kenny turn over the high definition clips or files for the live action series. And Kenny's been forever saying he doesn't have the files, or he has the files. I think the last, when Kenny lost the license at the end of 2017, he was trying to shake down Kensico, Dave Kenzer, Jelly Blackburn, and company, that if they wanted the files, they'd have to renew his license, give him a 5-year period of like a non-disclosure agreement and a non-talk agreement, so they would not be able to talk about Kenny or comment about him for 5 years. And then he'd agree to hand over the files. Well, guess what? Surprise, surprise. The reason why Kenny 3 years ago at Gen Con just released what he did for the release party and never fixed any of the typos that were in the credits is because Kenny no longer has the HD files. He had, according to Kenny, 3 disk drives, a 2 terabyte and 2 4 terabyte drives. The 2 terabyte drive had the standard definition files, and that is what Kenny turned over to Kensico, which was then given to Zoe, which turned into the Knights of the Dinner Table live action series remastered release using the standard definition, using not the highest quality video, but is what it is. The 2 4 terabyte drives, the HD drives, one had a critical failure, and Kenny, I guess, did not realize that even though it has a critical failure and the drive is dying, you can often save the data by giving it to a data recovery specialist. Instead, Kenny put it in the dump. And then the other drive, when Kenny was, according to Kenny, when he was in Atlanta, he left it with his former roommate. In other words, he left it with the former person whose couch he was surfing on, and apparently paying little to no rent. That's my assumption, because Kenny claims he's been couch surfing for years. And if you're couch surfing, you're living on the arm of somebody else. Kenny left the surviving 4 terabyte disk with the high definition files at his friend's house. And lo and behold, his friend got evicted. And with the eviction, I'm guessing the county sheriff did the eviction upon reclaiming his property from the eviction. His friend never saw the 4 terabyte disk, and I'm sure never even looked for it. It wasn't his property. So all of Kenny's bluff and bluster comes down to Kenny doesn't even have it. And he had to admit it. He had admitted under legal duress. So yes, in a way, the lawsuit was a success because we finally got truth out of Kenny, but it's not a success in the way that the data isn't there, the files are not there. You're not going to get whatever was promised. You can consider the fact that probably the Traveler and the Castles and Crusades videos I'm assuming, were also lost in that fiasco. So, fun times. Well, again, it's a rarity. Mark it on your calendar. July 31st, 2018. Ken Whitman told the truth. Oh my God. Stop the presses. All right. Now let's go on to something a little. It might be dry to some. I find it extremely interesting. We're going to look at some of the statistics for the hobby. Now, ICv2 releases sales figures for the hobby, and they rank their the top 5 properties in the way of sales numbers, and they say that their figures include Kickstarter. I don't think they used to in the past, but they do now. Ranking number 1, Dungeons and Dragons. Ranking number 2, according to them, Starfinder. I find it very hard to believe, but with the incoming Pathfinder 2 holding back Pathfinder sales, maybe that's where the switcheroo is happening. Pathfinder comes in at number 3. Star Wars from FFG comes in at number 4, and at number 5, Genesis comes in from Fantasy Flight Games. Now, my understanding is that Genesis is basically the narrative system from Star Wars, generically retro made, whatever. It has the IP taken out from it, so it's a system that is settingless, or at least the core system can be used in any type of setting. But now, even more interesting is that the total hobby for role-playing games, we're talking about, I guess, the 2017 figures. Well, I guess financial year. So I guess we're talking 2018, right? Financial ends in June 30th. 2016, the role-playing game hobby was valued at a sales figure. Well, here, we'll go back a while. 2013, about $15 million for the hobby. Scoot ahead to 2016, $35 million. Last year, $45 million. This year, $55 million. Now, you can say that the bulk of that is 5th edition. I have no problem with anybody saying that. They're probably right. I'm sure you're right. However, a rising tide lifts all ships. And it's the growth of the hobby, whether it's driven by 5th edition or anything else, is good for everybody. It's a good sign to see that you're in a hobby that's growing. Actually, the whole hobby game industry is growing. It's now valued at over $1.5 billion, which is cool. Fun times. The other thing to look at, these figures, the other one was sales figures. That's what people are supposedly buying. And if you look at the Fantasy Grounds numbers for the last 12 months, and I got to look up the numbers for Roll20, they're out there too. But if you're looking at the numbers for what people are playing, right now, 2/3 of people on Fantasy Grounds, 2/3 of the game sessions run on Fantasy Grounds are for 5th edition. 2/3. That's somewhere around like almost 465,000 sessions in the last 12 months on Roll20. Now, let's put that in perspective. The nearest competitor is Pathfinder at around 12%. 84,000. Savage Worlds comes in at 5%, or 1 out of 20 sessions at around 37,000. So now we want to know, dude, what about the classics? What about AD&D? What about the OSR games? Well, you know what? You have to have a rule set. Generally, if you on Fantasy Grounds, if you want to show up in the numbers, otherwise, I think you just fall underneath the core RPG rules or whatever. But AD&D, 3,757. Castles and Crusades, 4,400. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, 3,300. Rollmaster Classic, about 3,000. Warhammer 40K, 2,300. You're like, wow, but, well, listen, Numenera, the hugely successful Numenera game, at least when it comes to Kickstarters, only 1,900 sessions. And that could be, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Maybe all those sessions are happening on Roll20. I like Fantasy Grounds as a player. I'm not skilled or talented enough to run games with it as a GM. Roll20 is just so much less load on the GM. But this does go to show you that 5e is what's driving the industry right now. So, yeah, and I've been asked by a couple of OSR publishers, third-party publishers, and they've asked my opinion. God knows why sometimes, but they asked my opinion on what they could do to increase their share of the market, their income. And it's like, you've got stuff that, especially adventure-wise, you could convert from whatever your system is in the OSR to 5e without much trouble. It's not heavy lifting. Not like the heavy lifting that converting to 5e was. And God knows converting to 4e was a whole different animal. 5e and the old school Renaissance or the old school revival, the OSR, has synergy. There is much that is similar between the two. And converting between the two is not as oppressive as converting old school to Pathfinder or vice versa. So, but there you have it. That's the news. All the news that's fit for me to blabber about. Blabber. So, thank you, folks. I appreciate you stopping on by. Be safe. God bless. Roll your dice well. And I will speak with you all tomorrow. Later.